All right, fight week. Peter Badel, Nikita Tszyu-Michael, Zerafa, mates. Big fight for Australian boxing.
Oh, it's magnificent, Mac. Look, this is my hometown, mate, Bris Vegas, and look, we've seen probably one of the biggest fights in 20 years for Australian boxing. I mean, of course, there's the Mundine Green, 2006, we'll never forget that. Biggest pay-per-views ever, but since then we've seen, of course, Horn Pacquiao 2017, Tszyu and Horn 2020, even Horn Zerafa, those two fights. So look, it's right up there. I mean, I think it's got all the hallmarks to be a special bout. To me, they talk about styles making fights. I love the matchup here. Orthodox against Southpaw, stayer against a finisher, an aggressor against a calculated counterpuncher in Michael Zerafa. And so when you put those ingredients together, I think we're going to see a fight for the ages. I think we'll see a desperation. It'll be a battle of wills. And if anything, Macca, it won't be boring. I think this will be fireworks from the outset. So strap yourself in. We're in for a special one.
Who's got the, advantages in this fight?
Well, I said to Nikita in the coverage just before on Fox, the psychology of this bout's been interesting because Michael Zerafa's been saying that the pressure's on Nikita Tszyu to win because he's supposedly the golden boy and the rising star. I disagree. I think the pressure's on Michael Zerafa. I mean, if you look at every measurable barometer of performance in this fight, Michael Zerafa should win. He's had more fights, 29 more fights. He's had more wins, twice as many knockouts as Nikita's had fights. Has had better opponents, fought on bigger stages, been global. Nikita hasn't. So when I look at ticking the box, Michael Zerafa's ticked about every box except winning a world title. Now, I think Michael Zerafa is world class. I don't think he's world title world class, or he hasn't shown he is with the losses that he's had on the biggest stages of all. But Nikita's had nowhere near that experience. So if Nikita wins this fight, it will be something special and it will propel him into a world title eliminator in the IBF. That's phenomenal. So after 12 fights, he could be fighting for a world title eliminator. So, look, I think right now the best Michael Zerafa is better than Nikita's best, but will we get the best Michael Zerafa? That is the narrative of this fight.
In saying all that, why take the risk if you're Team Tszyu? Why take this risk against Michael Zerafa?
Well, I think that No Limit have showed with their escalation and progression and matchmaking of Nikita that they obviously feel that cometh the hour, cometh the man every time. Like Nikita's never failed. He's taken how many O's from opponents? And he's the least experienced world-ranked fighter at 154. That's a phenomenal effort after 11 fights to be world-ranked. He's number 6 with the IBF. And he's also ranked with the WBO. So, look, it's quite amazing what Nikita has done in such a short space of time. And when you look at, I guess, cleaning out the backyard, Macca, No Limit probably look at the calibre of opponents on the table. I mean, maybe a Ben Marnie, for example, could be a fight for Nikita domestically. But Nikita's pretty much beaten most of the guys that I would see as a genuine threat to him. Even Cole Mazzutia, I thought, would be a wonderful fight and ended up being a real war. But I think Nikita showed that I think Nikita can be world class. I really do. I mean, I know people talk about the faults in his game. Yes, technically he needs to tighten up. He still is probably not as watchful as he could be with his entries. He gets hit too much. He's hittable. But his recuperative powers between rounds are remarkable, which is a testament to his fitness. So I don't think there's many tests in Australian boxing that Nikita Tszyu can't conquer. And for that reason, I think they're feeling, well, Michael Zerafa at age 33 on the verge of his 34th birthday could be ripe for the picking, maybe on the downhill run after that loss to Erizlandi Lara. So I think Nikita would fancy that he's got the power, at least the one-punch power, to stop Michael Zerafa.
What about the mental element to this fight? Lots been made of Michael. He sort of, he flips that switch. He had a big crack at me a couple of months back. I stood my ground, Pete. Didn't go anywhere. What were your thoughts on that, firstly? And also, much has been made of Michael. Is he mentally tough as Nikita Tszyu?
Good question. I think Nikita Tszyu is mentally tougher. That's just my opinion. Look, I think Mick Zerafa he's a better fighter, technically at the moment. I think when I look at their skill sets, their trajectory of their careers, where they've gone, I think Mick Zerafa is ahead of the curve right now compared to Nikita Tszyu. In saying that, Nikita Tszyu has showed me in every fight, when he faces adversity, he walks through the fire. There's been numerous fights where he could have been stopped. Dylan Biggs dropped him in the first round. Jack Brubaker pretty much had a knockdown where Nikita, I think, put his hand on the canvas. Should have been ruled a knockdown. It wasn't. But I feel that anytime Nikita looks like he's just about 6 feet under, he rises and he finds something special. And that's a rare resilience that you find in a fighter. And I think the tougher the moment, the more resilient the moment, the better Nikita Tszyu gets. We always talked about Tszyu, that he always seems to find another level, where we're seeing that now with Nikita when there's moments in fights when he looks mentally defeated, he's victorious. He emerges from it. And so that's the challenge for me, Macca, with Mick Zerafa, because one thing about Mick is he can get put off his rhythm in fights. We saw it with Jeff Horn in their rematch, where Jeff Horn came out aggressive, got dirty, and Mick Zerafa struggled with that. And while he probably should have stopped Jeff Horn in the end in that 9th round, of course, there's that Hail Mary punch from Jeff that turned the tide. I think Mick Zerafa, mentally, that's always been the knock on him, that he's probably, and that's maybe why he hasn't won a world title. But I think if Nikita Tszyu can apply pressure early and maybe really land a big shot on Mick Zerafa, which he's capable of doing, then he could really rattle him. But if Mick Zerafa's allowed to find his rhythm, finds range early, finds his distance, cuts off the ring for Nikita, then he's in for a long night, Nikita. But you're right, this will be a battle of the mind. This fight will be won in the mind.
Who wins?
After saying all that, I think Michael Zerafa wins. I'll call it, and I'll be proven wrong. I've been proven wrong before. I said Jack Brubaker would beat Nikita, and he proved me wrong. So, look, I just think it's a little early for Nikita, this fight. And as I said before, when you look at the checklist, I think Mick Zerafa has every reason to believe that he should win this fight. I believe if Mick Zerafa's on, he wins. Look, he's gone 12 rounds with Kell Brook. He's had world quality opponents. And now look, Erislandy Lara taught him a lesson, but I think Mick Zerafa learned a lot from that fight, just being in with a world champion such as Lara. I don't know if in pressure situations, technically, if Nikita will be at Mick's level. I think Nikita's entries are going to be crucial. If he rushes in like he did against Dylan Biggs and he got dropped in the first round, if he rushes his entries and he has to watch his punch lanes, Nikita. He gets hit too much in punch lane moments where if you watch his hands, he often leaves himself exposed. And I think Mick Zerafa's got the hand speed, as he showed against Isaac Hardman, that if Nikita wants to bang, like Isaac Hardman tried to do that night, then Mick Zerafa only needs one opening and he will take it. And the one thing about Mick Zerafa is that he's an elite finisher. He goes for the jugular. And if he smells blood, you're in trouble. So that's the key for Nikita. Don't give Michael Zerafa a sniff. If he gives him a sniff, Michael wins. So summing that up, I think this won't go the distance. I think Mick Zerafa wins in the 9th or 10th round.
Big call. Tszyu, you were somewhat critical of his performance against Velasquez about a month ago now. Any change of thoughts, or is that still your opinion on Tszyu?
Still my opinion. I thought it was a 6 out of 10 performance. However, one thing I watched the fight again, and one thing I was impressed by that I didn't give Tim enough credit for at the time that I should now, I thought his jab was very good. I thought he had a good stiff jab. You could tell that he'd been working on that with Pedro Diaz. There was more jabbing, and I didn't mention that enough. I think fundamentally that was a better performance. I mean, you know, the jab's the fundamental punch in boxing, and Tim executed that really well. So I thought that was a good sign. I still feel he was a little bit tentative at times, but understandable, Macca. Like I spoke to Sean Porter before, and Sean was talking about when you go through that car crash moment as a boxer, you then got to get back in the car and avoid another car crash. And I think Tim had to do that. I think Tim had to be wary of pretty heavy hands that Velasquez possessed. I know Velasquez wasn't technically a good fighter. He didn't have Tim's skill set or IQ, but he did have heavy hands and he had the ability to hurt Tim if he landed. So, look, I think Tim overall, better days are ahead for Tim still. I think that was a good feel-out fight, a good way to get back in the ring. But if he's going to get back to the top echelon of 154, which he feels he can do, then we need to see a lot more. But the jab was promising, and I hope with a few more camps with Pedro Diaz, he can get better.
Last one, Joe Opetaia. We'll see a mixed sort of performance a couple of months ago against Sin Cara. Your thoughts on that? And Jai really needs a big fight this year.
It's a good point. Look, I thought Jai was almost a bit guilty of what Tszyu was in the lead up to Background Murders Alive, where he almost had this, Tim had this aura of invincibility and it almost verged on recklessness where he thought, I could just go in and blast blokes out. And it's probably a byproduct of the Ocampo win, that obliteration that day. So, look, I think Jai Opetaia, it wasn't his best performance. He was on. We know that. He said that. But I still feel Sin Cara didn't get enough credit. Macca, I thought Sin Cara was a crafty campaigner, had a lot of fights, unbeaten himself. So he's no mug. I think it was 23-0, 24-0. You don't get to that level if you can't fight somewhat. So I thought he was a better opponent than some people gave him credit for. But I thought Jai probably tried too hard in that fight. I thought a few times he almost closed the distance too much. Like he was almost crowded at times and was looking for that big shot. And I think a more calculated Jai, a more dominant Jai is when we see Jai on his toes, when he's moving well. That's when we see the best version of Opetaia, when he's bouncing on his toes, when he's energetic and he's effervescent. And I just felt he probably thought I can blast Sin Cara out. And so probably a victim of his own tactical circumstances there, but I still feel that it's also a sign that Jai needs those really big fights to tempt him. And I think, for example, if he was to get a Ramirez, that would bring out the best version of Jai Opetaia. So what's exciting for me is that there's another level in Jai, and that's pretty scary and pretty exciting for Australian boxing.
Legend. Appreciate it, Pete.
Bring on fight week, Macca. Here we go.